Hi everyone, welcome to Relationship Essentials. Again, if you're not following us on Instagram, please follow us, Relationship Essentials. If you're not yet subscribed to the channel, please do that now. Subscribe to the channel, share this episode with a friend, invite your friends, and we do post a lot on Instagram. So please, the same way you are pushing a lot of the nonsense that people push in the world, let's push positive stuff. Let's push kingdom stuff. Let's push Christ-related messages. So we want you to actually help us get kingdom message out there. We want people to know how they should navigate relationship, doing it God's way. You know, somebody asked me a long time ago, they said, do you think it's realistic to date godly in today's culture? And the reality is absolutely, it is realistic. Now, is it easy? No. Will it be hard? Yes. But is it realistic to expect anyone to date the way God designed for us to date? Yes. And the only way for you to accomplish God's plan is to eat God's food, His word, right? Garbage in, garbage out. You can't execute on an idea that you do not know. So knowing exactly how to navigate certain aspect of relationship using God's word is important. And that is what this platform is all about. We're all about showing you how you can use God's word to navigate, to understand sex, to understand dating, to deal with a heartbreak, to love your partner better, to spice things up in your bedroom. The Bible covers all of that. And we don't want you to go and learn from the culture, from the world, because their system is broken. And when you use a broken formula, you are always going to get broken results. So please help us push this message out there. In honor of mothers, we just celebrated Mother's Day, I believe last week. And for this episode, we decided to bring two great mothers and to have a conversation of what balancing motherhood and living on purpose looks like. So they're going to tell us their story. They're going to share with us how they've been able to do, because these are two people that do a lot, and they're still able to be effective moms and great moms for their kids. So to my right is Lisa Smith. She's an entrepreneur. She's the digital creator. She's, let me just get to my notes, please. She is the founder of Smile for Jesus event and proud owner of Smile Pretty Entertainment LLC and Ella's Brows and Beauty. So let's hear it for our guest, Miss Lisa Smith. Our next guest, her bio, if we read her bio, it will be long. We'll probably cover the whole episode. But we decided to just keep it short and sweet. Pastor Jean Price is a pastor. She's a wife. She's a mother to 3 beautiful daughters. She's been married for 40 years. And she looks like she's 39. She's an author. And she's also a documentarian. So let's hear it for Pastor Jean Price. All right, so I'm excited. It's so good to have you guys on the Relationship Essential podcast. And my goal as a host would be to glean some wisdom on what balancing motherhood and living on purpose look like. So I guess my first question for you is this: do you believe in a woman being a housewife?
Yes, I do.
Okay. All right.
I do. My daughter is actually a housewife. My oldest grandson will be 16 years old this year, and the Lord has given her an opportunity to be home to raise her children. My other 2 daughters had to work, and my husband and I see the difference. There is a difference with that mom being home to be that nurturer, to be the person to get that impartation into those children, and you can see the difference in the upbringing. Not that the other 2 is anything wrong, but there is a difference. So there's nothing wrong to me being a housewife.
So what is your definition of a housewife? Is it someone that they don't have a job, they don't work, don't own a business, they just birth and raise the kids? Is that your definition of a housewife?
My definition of a housewife is somebody that actually works in the house.
Works in the house.
And working in the house is that woman that nurtures the children. Mm-hmm. She keeps the upkeep of that house. She prepares that home for her husband when he comes home. That's a job. Mm-hmm. So that's a housewife to me, is a mother and a wife that's at home working.
Okay. What is your take on that? Do you think a woman? And I have more questions. I have more questions than that. But I want to get your take on. Do you think a woman? Do you believe in a woman being a housewife?
I believe it's obviously possible if we are housewives, but I
Mm-hmm.
don't believe that that should be the sole purpose. There are benefits to it, but I believe that there's more to being a housewife. She could be a housewife, but she should be doing other things.
All right.
Her purpose.
Question, right? I'll come back to you because now you guys, I could just let you. I could just step back and let you go on. So she believes that. So you're saying that it cannot be her sole purpose. So do you agree with that or do you disagree with that? It cannot be her sole purpose, just being a housewife.
I do believe that it cannot be her sole purpose, but I do feel that it is a purpose.
Okay, I agree with that. All right, so the question becomes, because my thing is always this, right? So if her responsibility is just to raise the kids, nurture the kids, what happens when they're grown? And what is she doing?
Well, to me, when my girls were young, there was a season in our marriage where I did have to stay home.
Okay.
But as I stayed home, I guess my focus for me at that time was being that mom, being a nurturer, being that housewife, but not to see it from the perspective of it being something negative. Mm-hmm. And I think the way you see it and feel about it makes the difference.
Yeah.
If you're seeing it from the perspective of you're pouring into your children and you're going to get something out of that nurturing, that's a different perspective than seeing it as, oh my goodness, it's a chore and I have to do it. So I think having a different mindset about doing that makes a difference. And then you get a different result.
Okay. If you ever feel like you want to address something she said, please don't hesitate. All right. I'm just, because again, I want us to be both. I want everybody to participate in the conversation. And when she's talking, I'm going to be looking over here. But if you have something to say, hey, just say I disagree. I respectfully disagree, or whatever it is that you have to say. All right. So I do agree that a woman being a housewife, for me, I think seasonal makes more sense to me. Again, but I don't know it all. I'm always open to learning because, like I said, when those kids are grown or before the kids get there, then what is she? Because the reason why I asked that question is because there's this narrative going on in our community today where women say, I just want a man I just want a rich guy. I want a rich guy. I just want to be home. And I just want him to take care of I want him to take care of me. So for me, if a woman comes to me with the mindset of, oh, I just want a guy that is rich. I just want to be home. For me, I don't think it's an attractive quality in a woman to just want to stay home and do, in my opinion, not that you're doing nothing, but before the kids, you're kind of doing nothing, right? Because my other take about housewife is this. I believe that God also placed a huge responsibility on the men to participate in the raising of the kids. And I think culture is twisting it in a way that is like, I had a friend, the wife gave birth, and he's like, oh, she's going to take care of the kids. I'm going to go make money. And I'm like, that's not necessarily biblical. Yes, the woman should, because she's more nurturing by nature. But it's also the responsibility of the man to be home to raise and train that child up in the way God designed for that child to be raised up. So do you feel like the whole housewife thing have made more men absent in the home? Because now they feel like, if I'm the only one working and you just home, and when I say you, I'm talking about in general, the women in general, because you've done a lot, right? But if you just home and I have to work, clearly, especially if you live in New York, you have to work a lot of hours. And who ends up paying for that? She ends up paying for it. The kids end up paying for it because now they have a dad that is home, but he's not home. So in that case, that is my disagreement with like a woman that says, I want to be a housewife, because I think it's not the right thing for a woman to be expecting going into marriage. Is that wrong? Or do you disagree or do you agree?
Well, I can only tell you from my experience.
Yeah.
Because we got married, we were so young. I did not have the opportunity to decide which role to play.
Okay.
So I had to play the role, or when I say play, not playing, but I had to be a part of a role that worked for our situation. Mm-hmm. I was at home, and my husband, he's a phenomenal provider. He made sure that he was the provider of the home. He made sure we were well taken care of. Now, I did work. And then I got to a point in my life where I wasn't just a housewife. I actually went to work. So, but while I was that housewife, he was outside making money to take care of us. So I didn't want to be a housewife to say, oh, I'm going to sit back and I'm going to let him make money. No, I was a willing participant in what we were trying to do. That was the difference for us.
All right. I could dig that. And I think one of the distinction that we've created here is based on your story. One, it's going to look different in every relationship, right? Everybody's relationship is not going to be the same. And that's why I think a lot of these women that have this mindset of a man is just going to take care of me. It's so wrong. It's not realistic. It's not healthy because you will attract a man that will most likely abuse you because you're looking to him, as opposed to looking to build with him. There's a difference between I want you to take care of me versus I want us to build. I see the vision and I know what I bring to the table. Because one of the biggest things that I've realized in relationships is if there's a lack of respect from one party, that relationship can become toxic in a minute. Like if he doesn't respect you or you don't respect him, it could be very problematic easily. And I think one of the ways a woman maintains her respect in a relationship, in my opinion, is to live out her life assignment given to her by the Creator. Which leads me to my next question. Did you ever find it hard living out your assignment when you found out you have, all right, this is that desire that God put in your heart, when it started burning? How was it finding that balance between, all right, I got these 3 kids, I got this handsome husband that I got to take care of? Like, did you ever feel that pressure of balancing, making sure that he's well taken care of? Because we know men don't want sex, they need sex, right? Making sure he's good in the bedroom, making sure the kids are good, and now making sure your calling is, like, what was that initial, that initial process, what did it look like?
Well, for me, I stayed home with my children until they were 2. I have 3 boys. And I knew that I wanted to be there because they weren't able to verbalize their environment, anything that, if something would happen to them, whatever they needed, I needed to be there for that time. So I had said that as a time for me to be home with my children, and I knew that after that 2 years, I was going to go and continue working and live out my dreams. I did not want to lose myself. Being a stay-at-home mom, the husband's out working and providing for the family, but it's very easy to lose yourself creatively, mentally, spiritually, physically, as being a mother at home. So I did not want that to happen. So I just set that time aside for my children and knew that once they were able to verbalize, everything that they needed to, and I was comfortable, then I would go out and continue doing what I needed to do in terms of purpose.
Did you guys ever have a moment where you're like, I can't do this, man. This is hard. Did you ever have that hitting the bottom, hitting the rock bottom, or just like you in the room crying? Like I've heard like different stories of breaking down. Like, man, this is like, I want to hear those stories. Those are stories
Yes, when the walls are closing in on you,
absolutely.
if you're breastfeeding, you have one child on your boob. You're not making a lot of money because there's only one provider, one person bringing in the money. I know what I could bring in, but obviously 2 incomes are better than 1. So it's like, it's very hard. And you have a child, depending on the ages, I have 2 children that are only 14 months apart. So I'm breastfeeding and then trying to give him cereal and then cleaning the house and then cooking the food. Like, yeah, it's a lot, and it's like, this is not my life. Like, I gotta get out of this house. Like, you know. So yes, it's very challenging, but at the end of the day, they're God's gift, you know. So I did what I had to do, and I would never change. I would never change it.
Absolutely, to answer your question, and I definitely agree. The balancing of it was difficult because I was learning while I was trying to teach, and it was very frustrating because I have an abusive background as a child, so I was actually a child who had a child. I was trying to learn while I was trying to teach. I was trying to become something and yet help my children to be what they needed to become. The balancing of it was hard. And trying to be a wife. I didn't know how to be a wife. And I didn't know how to even, let's go deeper, I didn't even know how to be a woman. So my whole world was encompassed with this one word of trying to learn how to be. And I had God. I got saved when I was 16 years old. Even with God in my life, I still didn't know the how. I know why I was in the position I was in because of the abuse, and we met, we were young, but I didn't know how to navigate through it. So the balancing of it, it was hard. It was very difficult. I'm on the other side now. I can say that now. But when you're in the trenches and if you're really transparent, you'll definitely make mention of the mistakes that you make, the shame that you feel. I can remember that my oldest daughter, who's going to be 41, how she would come to me and she would want to hold me, and I recoiled. And it wasn't her. It was because I didn't know how to love her. So it was a lot to try to balance in being the wife, the mom, and to be all that. And my youngest daughter said to me one day, "Mommy, you were my mommy, but you weren't my mom." Wow. That kind of took me back. We were driving back from Virginia, and what she meant was emotionally, I did not pour into her. And I'm not ashamed to say it because, as I understand, you have to hear what you didn't do correctly so that God can help you to fix it. Nice. So, yeah, it was hard to balance.
While you were saying that, I thought about something, right? Steve Jobs became popular for saying, we live life forward, but we are able to connect the dots only looking backwards, right? Hindsight is typically 20/20. My question to you, both of you, is this. You have those hard moments. You have those breaking moments. It's hard trying to navigate all of that. It was difficult. Looking back now with all the wisdom that you've gleaned, all the victories that you've celebrated, what is maybe one or two things that you wish you knew that if you had known it, it would have made balancing all of that easy? It would have made it easier if you had known it. You didn't know it then, but now looking back, you're like, man, if I knew this, man, that season of my life would have been so much easier. What would that be for both of you?
For me, the first thing that came to my mind was learning how to forgive.
Wow.
Again, I just touched a teeny bit of my abusive background, and I feel that somewhere in my life, if I would have forgiven sooner, I would not have been bitter. I would have become better. And I often say when I go out and I talk to women is that I learned, and this is a negative, I learned how to bleed on people. That's
Wow.
not a positive. When you bleed on people, they begin to have your blood, your stain on them. And it's not always a pretty picture. So, again, I'm a lot older now, and I'm still learning. And that's the beautiful part about Christ, right? God is forever teaching us and forever learning. We're forever being discipled. I'm not there yet. I'm trying to get there.
Wow, that is heavy. That's heavy. Before you go, just hold your thought real quick. I want to touch on something that I want you to touch more on something that you just talked about. So, broken people typically break other people because by nature, misery loves company. And many times when we are hurting, we end up hurting somebody else. So you're saying that part of your struggle in navigating that season of your life is because of a pain, an unaddressed pain that you had gone through before even becoming a mom. So can you speak a little bit about that? Like, like how, like the importance, like if I'm not sure if you want to share what you went through, but if you could just highlight the importance of healing before going into the dynamic of a love relationship with somebody else. Because clearly, I remember reading the book Transform, and one of the things that he said was, if David never killed Goliath, we would never get Christ. So what he was saying, in other words, was when we refuse to kill the giant in front of us, generations suffer for the giant that we did not slay. So by killing our giant, we are not just saving ourselves. Generations will be saved because of the giant that we slay. So can you just address, based on your experience, the importance of addressing pain, forgiving, dealing with trauma, dealing with heartbreak, before you go into that committed something with somebody else? Because you won't be the one paying for it. Your kids will pay for it. Their kids will pay for it. Your husband will suffer for it. Can you just touch on that a little bit?
Wow, that was powerful too. So to try to unpack all that, I did not do it well. And that's why I don't mind being transparent about it, because it goes back to the word I said earlier, is the how. When you don't know how to do something, you can't do it. And you need somebody to speak that life into you. I felt like, and I often say, that I was never living, I was existing. And there is a difference. It's a difference. We talk about the 10 lepers, right? The Bible says that one was healed, but the greatest part, 9 was healed, but one was made whole. And I never came to the conclusion that wholeness existed for me. So I went through my life coming out of being sexually abused for 12 years, and that's what the documentary is about, Amazing Grace, Surviving Sexual Abuse, where I interview 5 women and myself, and we tell our stories. And in the in the documentary, you'll see where we went from being victims to being victorious. But at the end of the documentary, we all gave our life to Christ. So God is the root, He's the underpinning, He's the author and the finisher of my faith and everything. And I did not know how to be that wife to Him. So if you want to talk, you can my dating, right? I didn't have a you and a Juliet to sit and tell me, how am I supposed to pour into this strong man? He needs a wife. He needs a woman that's going to understand his needs. He has desires. He has everything. I couldn't do that. I was not able to fulfill that in him because I didn't know how. I didn't even see it within myself. So in the relationship, I had a lot of shame. I remember we had a conversation. I felt so ashamed about him knowing how I was sexually abused and the things my stepfather did to me and all of that. That was a shame for me. Though it wasn't my fault, it was a shame. I could not pour into him. So therefore, there's a lack. And if we're totally transparent, these